Alright, so we're here today. We got a special guest we're interviewing. I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Mark Miner. I'm a writer, author. Yeah.
Then we got Leah with us today. We got Ryan with us. That's pretty much all we do, Mark, is sit around, drink coffee, and you're going to tell us your theory or whatever on paranormal. What you believe in, what you don't believe in. Any other kind of stuff that you like the people out in TV land to know about, such as your books or whatever. You can talk about that. But we'll start off with Ryan. Do you got questions for Mark to start this thing off?
Sure, make me kick it off. I guess since this is a paranormal show, what are your views on the paranormal?
Well, I've always believed in, I wasn't raised very religious, but I've always believed in an afterlife, even as a kid. My grandmother was, since the 40s, was I guess what you call a parapsychologist nowadays. Back then they just called them ghost chasers, or whatever. But she did a lot of that, so she would tell us all the stories that she did, and she even did an investigation out in Timbuktu, California, which is kind of funny. People don't think that town exists, but it does. But anyway, so I would sit down with my grandma, oh my God, at the age of 3 or 4, and listen to her stories, and there at the end before she passed away, we all thought she had dementia because she was talking about a lot of stuff with the paranormal that just seemed pretty far-fetched. And about 10, 15 years later, as I got older, it all came out, in the media and with the groups. And I haven't, to this day, I don't know how she knew that, how that would happen and stuff like that. So she was a phenomenal lady. But so I've always been into the paranormal. I've always questioned things because I knew there was something more, but I never knew. At the age of 9, excuse me, at the age of 9, I was a normal kid, playing kickball. It's the 70s, taking your little AM FM radio out in, out in the weeds and stuff to listen to the rock and roll that you were never allowed to listen to back then. But so I was a normal kid. But one night, prior to that, we have a next door neighbor named Mr. Crittenden, and he was a very friendly guy. He was an older guy, and he ended up passing away. And so we were neighbors with him for about 4 years, and we all went to his funeral. And it was very sad to see him go. And anyway, so one night I was in bed. I was on the top bunk, and I was a little upset over something my mother did, and she came in to say goodnight. Well, on the ceiling, tacked up, was this poster of the universe, and she came to my bed and to ask me if I was still mad at her, and I said no, and I asked her what's outside of the edge of that poster, what's more to that, and she goes, there's nothing more to that. My mother only went to the 6th grade, so but she said there's nothing more than that, that's just it. I said that can't be it, there's got to be more, than that, otherwise what's the point of me being alive? And she actually grounded me 2 weeks for saying that because she thought I was suicidal, and I wasn't in any means. When I went to sleep that night, my sister Keita slept on the bottom bunk, and she was always the black sheep of the family, always causing problems and everything. So I got woken up in the middle of the night because I thought Keita was kissing my cheek, and which is kind of gross for your sister to do at that age. So I kept yelling at her, and I turned over, faced the wall, and then I didn't feel anything on the bed, but I got the kiss on my cheek again. So I turned around to yell at her, and there was a woman standing there, and she was, I don't know who she was, and she was, lace neck and the big hair, and it freaked me out. And so I just stared at her for the longest time, and then I got to the bottom of the bunk and went down the side and ran into my mom's room. And my dad was out carousing around. But anyways, I told my mom about it, and she told me to, you know, shut my mouth, go back to bed. So of course I creeped back up on that bunk, scared as all get out. And they came out of the woodworks. They just all came out. I didn't know if it was my imagination. They were at the windows, tapping on the window to the bedroom. They were probably at one point in time about 8 or 9 of them standing around my bed. I don't know who they were. And I've never been exposed to this, you know, so I freaked out and jumped off the bunk and ran to my brother's room. He had his own room at that point, and he let me sleep with him the rest of the night. So my mother didn't really care if we went to school, so every morning she'd wake us up, "You want to go to school or not?" And I said no. And so, because I was trying to figure out what happened that night, and I didn't want to talk to my brothers and sisters because I didn't want to be picked on, you know. So I went outside. Well, I got dressed for the day, and I dressed all in green because my favorite superhero was Green Lantern, and I wanted to go play Green Lantern. And so they were doing construction next door, so they had these big mounds of dirt, and I'd climb up there and, you know, do my ring thing. And my mother yelled from the house something. She was angry that day, and when mother's angry, you know, you listen. And so I went into the kitchen. She just railed in on me about something. I can't remember what it is now, about not making my bed or something. And so I thought, well, I want to make Mom happy today, so I'm gonna go pick her some flowers. So Mr. Crittenden's house is across the dirt lane. So I went over there. It's like a ditch, and then dirt lane, ditch. So I, you know, did my Green Lantern thing, jumped over the ditch, and had a lot of fun. His grass was pretty high because it's been 4 months since anybody mowed his lawn, but he had like wildflowers. So I crouched there and was picking flowers, and I heard someone go, "Hey," and I looked up, and there's Mr. Crittenden, and he always wore blue jeans, white T-shirt with cigarette pack, like in the 50s. He always wore that, and that was him. I know that was him, and so I just stared at him like, "What?" You know, and he said, "I need to tell you some things," and I said, "Mm-mm, mm-mm," and I stood up and I started backing off, and he said, "It's just gonna begin." He says, "You're gonna be doing this for the rest of your life," and I as he said, "Life, I'm out. I'm already." I just heard it as I started running, so I ran, still clutching the flowers, ran in the kitchen, and I told my mother exactly what happened the night before and with Mr. Crittenden, and I was hysterical. I was just crying, and I was out of my mind, and she slapped me across the face to get me to come to, and then she sat me down. We talked, oh my God, for 5-6 hours, and told me about Grandma and stuff like that. And so she kind of walked me through that. She told my father that night, and my father's, excuse the term, is a total douchebag, but he went and told a lot of people, and he wanted to make a dime on it. So we had news stations coming to the house. I was, you know, they wanted to book me on talk shows and stuff like that. So it got pretty widespread. So I got my little taste of cameras in my face at that point. And we ended up moving 3 weeks later to California. That was in Kansas. So we moved to California to get away from it. And yeah, so I've been in the paranormal ever since. Yeah. Talking to. That was kind of a windy answer, wasn't it?
That's all good. That's a good
Was
story.
that your earliest experience with the paranormal?
Yeah. And I've been married 3 times. And every time I do get married, my kids all knew. My kids are all, I have 5 kids, and so they're all used to things happening. But I always tell my wives before we get married, I'm not normal. Things will happen around me. And they're like, yeah, you know, they either think I'm a drunk or they think I'm dope or something.
My wife tells me I'm not normal too.
Yeah. So I remember my 3rd wife, we were laying in bed, the first time we ever made love. And it was over at my place before we moved in together. We were just dating. And we just got done, we're laying on the bed, and the closet door's open, and she screamed to bloody hell. And I jumped, and I said, what's going on? She goes, there's a lady standing in your closet. I said, oh yeah, that's just my mother. And she's like, what? I said, that's my mom. She died like 4 years ago. And she kind of freaked out with that. But we ended up getting married, been married 5 years, and then got divorced. You know? So, a lot of them can't handle it. We woke up one time, she woke me up actually. I'm a very hard sleeper whenever I do sleep, but when she woke me up, there was a 13, 14-year-old boy standing at the end of the bed. And of course it looks really real. And she was freaking out, and I kept like holding her down and touching her to calm her down, because they're just people and they just want to say something, you know. So I said, just let him say his piece and shut up, quit screaming, you know. And he talked to us. She ended up getting into it and talking to him like he's a real person. I think she forgot that he wasn't, you know, like us. And so we ended up talking with him for about 3 hours, and he explained a lot of things about what happens when you pass over, where you go, where he went, I should say, and why we leave echoes behind and stuff like that, and the energy that's trails as you go. So, and then us, we pick up on those energies. So he explained all that stuff to us, and really nice kid.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So now since you're older, I mean we're all older, but are you still having paranormal things come to you?
Yeah, I do. We, one of my sons lives in Albany, and actually just most recent was yesterday, and we decided to try out Bigfoot Bites, where your wife works. And because we were there, he was getting a game at GameStop, and so we stopped there. He said he wanted to go out and have a cigarette, so he went outside the mall while I waited for the food. And anyways, they had a birthday party going on over in the little, you know, area for the kids. So I was sitting there watching that, and you know, remembering when my kids were that age. And so my son is 24. He'll be 25 in February. But so he was gone, and so there's a Hispanic family behind me, and then there was a guy just sitting by himself on this other side behind me, and that was the only people that was around. Anyways, this lady from the party over there walked over and asked me if I wanted to join her, and I said no, it's okay. And so she says, are you eating here? It's really good. And I said, yeah. And she goes, the best burger in town. I said, oh yeah, that's what I heard. And then I'm sitting there, so I'm still talking to her. I'm like, is it your kid's birthday? But so, you know, that kind of just nonchalant stuff, because she just approached me, and I'm not Brad Pitt, so I know she's not trying to ask me out. So my son come back, and he sat down. He goes, so he just puts his head down like that. I said, what's wrong? So I just kind of smiled at her, and I said, what's wrong? He goes, could you just please stop? And I'm like, Zach, stop, you know, because I was getting embarrassed because a woman's like, why are you not going away? Generally, they would excuse themselves and walk away. And he says, there's nobody there. And I'm like, okay. So I just sat there and stared at him, and he said, she's still there? And I said, yeah. And then I said, you're going to have to go play with your kid. Like that. And she just turned away and walked on. Because the guy that was working at Bigfoot Bites,
Yeah.
he was staring at me through the kitchen when he was frying the burger. Because I kept looking over there going, okay, he thinks I'm crazy.
Who's this guy talking to?
I know. It's like maybe he's just talking to himself. Yeah. But yeah, I still have incidents. Not always that drastic, but and because of my writings and the investigations I've done, and working with, you know, state police departments and stuff like that, and actually worked with the FBI twice. You know, you try to just bring it down, you know, like you numb yourself.
Yes.
Because you have to deal with that so much, you know, and it's on a daily thing. So what I tend to do is I surround myself with skeptics a lot. Like my roommate, he doesn't believe in any of this crap. He doesn't, he denies it. You could have a chair float through the air in front of him and he'd deny it was anything paranormal. But, and that's what I kind of surround myself with, so I keep that balance, and kind of get some peace. Yeah.
It's always good to have that balance, that way it's not all one-sided,
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think if you surround yourself too much with not just the afterlife, but with other paranormal things that's going on out there, such as cryptozoology and or UFOs or Bigfoot or anything like that. If you surround yourself too much with that, you lose that objectiveness of, I don't know if that's a word. If you lose that. Objectivity, thank you. Yeah, you lose that. And it's always good to keep that, even when you're having a personal experience or if you're in a group or whatever, keep that mayhem down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's important with paranormal groups in particular, because, people tend to feed off other people, is that, like my sister, she's probably more clairvoyant. Yeah, my mother is like that, but I haven't inherited any of those things, and so she, feels and things touch her and she sees, and I'm always one sitting next to her going, what about me, but I think in a group, I think that's important to have different members.
It
like
is.
that, even in your group.
Like, when I talk to other people who do see things or hear things and stuff, I think it's kind of like, this is my rationale about it. I think that, so if Ryan has never tasted lemon chiffon cake, and we have, he can't relate to what we're talking about. But then when he has lemon chiffon cake and actually tastes that for, now he knows the different flavors of lemon that he never knew existed. So it's the same thing with the paranormal. I believe that if you've ever seen, like a lot of people say, well, I'll never see an actual apparition, or, for me they're as real as this, but they'll never see. But the facts about that is, two things, is one, you probably already have and you don't even know it. Every day you walk around, you probably pass 4 or 5 of them, don't even know. And two, I believe that when you accept the fact, after you have your first experience and you accept the fact that this is real and it has to be explained and not just, kick it out of thought, you open up yourself, see this a lot. And I think everybody's capable of doing that. You don't have to channel or figure out energies around you or meditate or, do all the little tools you have to do to call a spirit, One of the biggest complaints I've ever heard from those who have passed on, I haven't talked to many, but I'm just saying over the years, is they get annoyed when people summon or when people demand that they come. It's rude, so when, like some paranormal shows on TV, when they go into a building or a house or something, and there's, they demand you show yourself, I demand you say something, yelling. Well, how would you react if someone came in your house doing that? So that's that one thing that they say is so disrespectful, that they're just people and stuff like that. But I think everybody's got that capability, Always trust your intuition if you feel like something's around you or whatever.
Yeah, I believe a lot of these paranormal shows has done more harm than good to
Oh yeah.
paranormal investigators.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of it just they're actors, and they're trying to sensationalize something that to boost ratings.
I used to work I was a consultant with the Travel Channel, just Discovery Channel and A&E and all them. Some of the shows I just walked off on, and one of them was Ghost Adventures, and the other was something Collector.
Haunted Collector?
The one where he gets all the
The
relics.
Ghost Adventures, the ones I had in
Yeah.
mind when I mentioned it, so I'm glad you
Yeah.
said it. That's one of the ones that kind of.
But I've also worked on the Dead Files, and that's how I met Amy and Steve. And I to this day I still text and call with Amy because I have questions, and you know she likes to relate things too. You know she's like her husband I was telling you about. He's very quiet and whatever, but she's she can talk 1,000 miles a minute, and so she likes to really share the things that she sees and stuff like that. But even on her show, even Steve will admit, I've only met him twice, but on their show they will say what you said. A lot of the paranormal groups do a lot of damage. They come in and they do an investigation and they walk away. And it's almost like me coming into your house and saying, oh, chair, ooh, table, ooh, and I'm just moving things around, then I just leave. It's causes a lot of stir up, and there should be that resolution in that where if a group comes into the home, they're doing it to assist those who have passed on, assist those who are living to get along or whatever. I had a case in Salem 7 years ago where the mother and the father used to live in this house. They bought this house in the 30s and they lived there and raised their kids there and whatever. The mother is in a nursing home. The father had passed away and one of the daughters was living there. And so she wanted us to come investigate the house because she believed there was a demon in her house. So when we went and investigated, I think it was like 2 months straight, we went every week. And we caught something that was confusing what this entity was saying. I didn't see anything. Sometimes they don't have enough energy for that, whatever. So sometimes we get the EVPs instead, and it's very soft whisper. But he said something, I can't remember to this day, but it was something about like an object in the home or something, and it confused me. So I asked her about that, the client, and she automatically knew who was in the home, and it was her father. And so I said, I think he's restless. I think that your father is looking for your mother. I think so. What you need to do is go home, get an object that was of your father's, and tell your father, and do this for a week every night, and tell your father to attach himself to that object, and you will take him to his wife. And that's what he did, or what she did. And then at the end of the week, she took the object to her mother in the nursing home, who was, quite out of it, and placed the object in the room, and she hasn't had any problems in the house since then. So there's resolutions. I also had one case where the client's 2-year-old son was being haunted, thrown, pushed, woken up in the middle of the night. He wouldn't sleep in his room, and his name, let's just say his name was Sam. And so when we did an investigation, we just did one investigation there, and I clearly saw who was in the house. But we caught 2 pictures of him, and then we had tons of EVPs. I mean, this guy loved to talk. He screamed a lot with profanity. And there was only 3 of us investigators there. It was me and 2 other women. And so I thought, well, I better do some background on this house. And I found out someone had committed suicide in the house in the late 70s. And he went to South Albany High School and all this stuff. He was, destined to be an Olympic swimmer. But he got in trouble. He got a girl in high school pregnant, and they didn't want to be parents so young, but he was taking on that responsibility. They had a son whose name was Sam, same as the kid there. But his son died in his bed overnight, suddenly, to this day, this unknown why. And then she left him because she blamed him, and then he just lost it. So he went down to California, became a drug runner. On the way back up to Oregon, he was murdered, and for his drug running. And his name was Kerry. And I think what happened was I called Kerry's living sister in Salem, and we talked a lot and stuff like that. And I was telling her about some of the incidents. I showed her the 2 pictures we got. She said, "Oh my God, that's my brother." And I said, will you come to the house with me and help me talk with Carrie? And she said, yeah. Well, when we got back, went to the client's house, she moved. And I had no idea where she moved to. So we had to put it on hold for about a month. And finally she contacted me and she goes, it's continuing my new place. So I'm like, okay. So we went to her new place. I called the sister. We waited for about 2 hours. She finally got there. And we talked to Carrie and we told Carrie that's not his son. We just was empathetic with him and talked to him and just shouted it out and stuff like that. We didn't put anything on to record or anything. We just said things. And that client and that boy, and I actually visited the boy, or I saw the boy at Walmart not even 2 weeks ago. He's quite grown now, but they haven't had any problems since then. And Carrie's moved on. So you got to find resolutions. You're almost like a psychologist in a lot of ways.
So on a lighter note, I've got to ask, you said investigations, what is the funnest or coolest investigation or place that you've done or been to in relation to paranormal?
There's this woman in Wichita, Kansas who called me and begged me to fly out there. Because she had found on the internet the things that happened to me when I was 9, what I was talking to you about before. This is really weird. And so I just ignored her emails and stuff because, I didn't want to get into that. And so she was describing stuff in the house that was just, I have never heard. I mean, it makes the Amityville Horror look like Mr. Rogers' living room, okay? So I'm just like, right, I think she's over-exaggerating it. And if I want to fly anywhere, why would it be to Wichita, Kansas? I'd want to go to, somewhere like New York or something, right? So she just kept pleading for about 6 months, and emailing. And so my sister lives, in a town near that. So I thought, well, I'll go out there. So I went to visit my sister, and then I went to the house. And first thing I noticed when I walked up to the house was it's a 2-story with an attic, and then there's windows on top of the attic. That she had all her kids up in the attic. I mean, there's about 4 kids in that window. Just, pounding, I'm just like waving. And I went to the door, and everything looked normal, and she answered the door, and so we talked for about 15 minutes. She wouldn't even let me step in, which was kind of weird. Usually people invite you in, but we talked for about 15 minutes, and then I mentioned, I saw your kids. She goes, we don't have any children. And I'm like, okay, So I was kind of pessimistic because of the way she worded her emails. So I said, it was okay if I come in. And she says, well, I need you to sign this waiver before you come in. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And so I'm like, whatever. So I read it, and it was like 1 page. So I signed it. It was nothing really legal. And so I stepped in, and the minute I stepped in that house, I wanted to turn around and walk out. I know a lot of people have said that before, but the air was, I don't know how to describe it. The air was, it's almost like, when you're a kid and you stand next to an adult, you just know he's a creeper, or he's a nasty person. That's how the house felt. Like, when I stepped into the house, I felt like there was no me. Like, it just invaded me, and I didn't want to be rude, so we stepped into the dining room. She had this huge table, and like an 18-seater table. I mean, it was huge. And so we sat down at this thing, we drank coffee, and we're talking. And the whole time we're talking, it's like people are running past. I can't see them, they're like shadows on the wall and stuff. And she's just oblivious to this stuff. And I was intrigued at that point. Yeah, I don't know what it is. And so I ended up moving in, and I stayed there for 3 months. I don't know what happened to me. I dropped everything in my life. I hadn't seen my kids, and my family out here was still taking care of them. I refused to leave the house. People tried to, I would get calls, are you coming home? I told them I didn't want to talk to them anymore. I just became so obsessed with that house. And we would have the police officers called on the house all the time because of excessive noise, which we had no noise going on. They wouldn't step past the living room. We had a psychic come in who actually had a nervous breakdown by the time she entered the stairwell. We had paranormal groups in there who wouldn't stay no more than 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it was a bad house. I ended up going to the hospital 4 times. Once for being choked, twice for being stabbed, and once for being almost raped. And this was not by a person. And I have all this documented because, long story short, I know it sounds like it's a bad experience, but it wasn't really a bad experience. Eventually what happened was first of all, let me mention, I would never go in the basement. I went down there once and no, and we did research on the house and I found out why you should never go in the basement, which was really bad. And anyway, so we saw this thing on TV, tornado warning, you know, and the sirens were going off. And if you live in Kansas long enough, you know that 90% of the time, that's not true. So I'm on the front porch smoking a cigarette, and I turn around and I see the tornado, and I'm like, holy crap. So I ran inside, and the owners weren't even there, and I ran inside, and just as I opened up the basement door, I got sucked in. And a lot of people think that tornadoes blow wind, they don't, they suck. So all her furniture was sucked out her windows, you know, and it destroyed the house. Even then, I wouldn't leave. She did. She moved out, the owner and her husband, and I refused to leave the house. I went, called the phone, and ordered tarps from Walmart and had them delivered. And I tarped up ceilings, walls, barricaded myself in the bedroom. Finally the police came and with a city official, and they said that they had bought the land from the owner and they were going to demolish the house. I had to go. So I was actually forced out of the house. I went and stayed at a motel, and I was there maybe 6-7 hours at most, and it's like I just came out of this fog. Like I had this flu for 3 months and it passed. That's how it felt. And I kept thinking to myself, what the hell am I thinking? And I called my kids, I called my family, and apologized and whatever. And anyways, long story short, what happened with the house was the original owner, back in the 1800s, that was all farmland, 3-4 blocks. He would rape a lot of the slaves. He had a lot of slaves. He would rape a lot of the slaves, men and women. And the women would have children, and they would take those children, because he wanted to hide it from his wife. His wife had weak legs, so she'd never go down the stairs to the basement. And so he'd hide those babies in the basement. And whenever one of the, several of the kids got old enough, they would take care of the rest of the babies. So at one point in time, he had 20 some odd kids down there that just learned to be quiet. And if they didn't be quiet, he'd cut their tongues out. And it was just really bad. And so, but every time one of the women slaves had one of his children, he killed the slave and buried him on the ground. So just the lot that house was on was 100, they actually excavated all of it, and there was over 118 bodies just on that lot. So the city now, to this day, because I Google map it, or satellite it, to this day it's all fenced off with warning signs. They won't sell that land to nobody, because even though all the bodies are taken away, But that house stays with me because what I didn't say is when you go through the house, the history of that house from, I think it was built in 1880 something. The history of the house throughout the years was really bad. And so when you go upstairs, especially the second floor, if I could run through the second floor and get to the third, I was okay. But because that third floor is where all those kids were, but which is like the attic. It was made to a small apartment. We found hidden rooms in the house, stuff like that. But the second floor was evil. I know that sounds melodramatic, but if you've ever felt evil, times that by 10, that's what that floor was. And I was, helping renovate the house, but I never went to the second floor. They came down from the second floor and attacked a lot, like when I was taking baths or showers or something. They like to sneak up on you. But anyway, so to this day, I still have the hospital reports, I still have the pictures and still have all that stuff. And I ended up wanting to write a book on it. But when I started laying out my outline to write the book, it's almost like I'm being revisited by these people that are in the house. And they're not good people. And so, I woke up with my feet cut, in the middle of the night, and blood all over my sheets and stuff like that, and knives on the floor. I don't think my roommate would have did that. And so I just stopped, so right now it's kind of on hold. But the reason why that's the most important one to me is because there were good entities in the house and there were really bad ones. But I wanted to know why they coexisted. And they knew each other. They interacted with each other. I mean, they weren't, we had groups over there that would see these things. They didn't try to hide it. I mean, mailman could walk in and see 3 or 4 of them. Anybody. I mean, that house was strong, I'm telling you. But how the good and the bad commingled and lived peacefully, I don't understand that. And what I didn't understand was from the wife that's from the 1880s and the man who killed his family in the 70s for satanic rituals would mingle. All these timelines mingled. And so that confused me a lot, because sometimes he would go into her time and sometimes she would go into the time of the 80s, and it would show that. And so I contacted a lot of physicists and found out that, there's no such thing as time. And, time is very, not linear. It folds upon itself. And so I actually got into that, and that was actually my thesis to get my doctorate. That time doesn't exist. And to them, so that was the most important investigation I've ever done. And to this day, there's no resolution. I don't know where they went. I don't know, maybe they're still on the property or whatever, but.
I could always send Ryan back there to go check it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm not feeling good, sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't. My sister, she actually lives 2 towns over, I was telling you about, and she always says, I drive by there sometimes, when I go to Wichita. She goes, but I'm so tempted to walk on there. I'm like, don't do it. Mm-hmm. But she'll stand at the fence and take pictures. And what's weird about it is, like, she's an amateur, in the paranormal thing. So she'll send me pictures, look at this huge orb. And I'm like, these people would sit down to table with you. So if they wanted to show themselves, it wouldn't be an orb. It'd be right there in your face,
I honestly have to say, I wouldn't be able to handle an experience like that. I'd been one of those guys that came in 10 minutes later, gone.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess I feel I've always had a soft heart when it comes to people being down, like abused women or children or stuff like that. Animals, I'm a huge animal guy. So I think of the people who have passed over kind of in that light sometimes. I mean, I met a lot of happy people, like the teenage boy and whatever. But most of them, I think, it's like, okay, like the teenage boy said, most of them that he's talked to when he passed on, most of them he's talked to who have talked to him to help him understand where he's at that moment. Basically say, it's kind of like saying, okay, now we have this eternity of time to figure out why I did this, or to figure out why this happened in my life, or to figure out, why I, was mean to this puppy when I was 4, or something like that, to resolve a lot of things for themselves or family, which is very rare, but it's always for themselves. He said, once everybody feels good about, one person feels good about finding that resolution, then they have a choice. And I said, what's the choice? And he says, you can't know that. He goes, until you've actually passed over. And I'm like, okay. So I don't really believe in a heaven. I really don't really believe in a hell. You know, told you I wasn't going to get in religion, so I'm just not going to get into it too much. But I believe that there's different states of spirituality, different levels. And I believe that you choose what level you want to go to, I guess is a way of saying it. And you make your own heaven or hell. That's how I think. You know, just from talking to these people.
So have you ever been on like an investigation where you get this time lapse? It's like me and Ryan went out to one place and we only thought we was there for like 15 minutes. And by the time I came out, I was there for what, like 3 or 4 hours.
Something like that, yeah.
It's just like,
There was an investigation that Oregon State Police Department asked me to come in on, and it was out of the Van Duzer corridor going towards the coast. What kicked it all off, why they wanted me to go into it, was because there was a car that was abandoned there and someone who was missing. And we ended up finding his body 4 days later, but unexplainable why he went 2 miles into the forest to just keel over and die. There's no reason why he died, he just died. Natural causes, he's 32 years old. But anyways, so when I was doing my investigation, the locals there claimed that they would lose time, that they say they were abductees. So, but they would actually drive through and they showed up at their house 2 hours later or something. I was curious about this, so I went and interviewed a lot of people, and one of the people, or it was family, so the whole family went 2 cars to the coast, stopped at McDonald's, and then started going back, and they actually showed up 3 hours later at their home so they lost 3 hours of time. And both of them, so they were saying, you know, like at one point in time, the dad said he was in the front car, that he looked back and he couldn't see the car in the back, and the ones in the back car said they couldn't see, like they just disappeared. And so I wanted some of them to go under hypnosis, and the only one who really agreed to it and the parents consented was a 14-year-old boy. And he doesn't remember a lot, even under hypnosis, doesn't really remember a lot what happened. It's like a blackness, but he does remember under hypnosis that came out. He remembers that there are now people who stand at his window, his bedroom window, and he talks with them through the window at night. And his parents said after the session, we explained to them, and we taped it, so they had a tape of it. They said, yeah, he's been sleepwalking a lot, you know, and so I don't know what that's about. So I've never experienced anything like that, but I've heard it happen a lot, you know. So that investigation's still open, by the way, by the state police department. So there's a lot of people who are dying in that area for some reason.
yeah, that's a good thing. Because I've been interested in that area. Well, me and you talked before about out there, and you told me. It's like I brought up to Ryan that I was interested in going out to that area.
Yeah.
Because what I've heard, it was like people seeing strange lights.
So that was one of the other things. So the tribe that's out near there, the Indian Reservation, the chief, or the chief's son at that point, he lives, you know, the house as you're on the highway, the house with the white pillars.
Yeah.
That's where he lives. That's the chief's house. And so now the son is the chief, this after the fact. I went and, I don't know why, I was driving by, I knew that was the leader of the Indian tribe's house, and so they had a yard sale pulled up. You know, sometimes as an investigator, you just have to throw yourself in there, right?
Yeah.
Even if you look like you're crazy. Anyways, so I was talking to him, and he agreed that he would, if I was willing to go camping with him and a couple of tribe members, he would show me where these lights, because they claim there's a secret base out there.
Okay.
He'd show me where the lights come out of the mountain. I'm like, okay, so I'm not just gonna go out with strangers by myself. So I took my son with me, And I always have it concealed on me when at that moment, moments like that. We went up there and we stayed, I think it was early the second night. We saw the lights coming out of the mountain, and I have to tell you that, when it comes to something like that, I'm not a huge ufologist or all that stuff, but there's so many explanations for that. And so, unless it's right here, and I can just measure it and whatever. So I asked him, well, let's go. Let's get in our cars and let's go to that side of the mountain. So I want to actually see the point where the balls of light are coming out of. Because they were just shooting out. And he said, no, white people are not allowed on that part of the reservation. And so, I don't know what happened with that, but it's funny how you said that about the whole balls of light.
Our northeastern Oregon, we call them will-o-wisp, but it's seen in eastern Oregon, northeastern Oregon quite a bit too.
That's weird, yeah. I don't know what they are. I know the Earth sometimes emits energy, I don't know what the technical term for it is, but sometimes it just emits energy sometimes, and sometimes there are balls of light that come out,
Yeah,
or
'cause
atmospheric stuff.
Me and Ryan's had that same experience out in Turner.
That was crazy.
10:30 at night, we're driving down, going by that pick apart, and
Meet a friend of mine that's into the paranormal.
then we won't mention his name, but he's also what at the time was a cop for the city of Turner. And all of a sudden we seen these balls of light shooting out, and we thought the way we described it was Chinese lanterns, what they look like.
Those floating paper lanterns?
But there ain't no way the lantern's gonna dance around the sky the way it danced around.
No,
And
that was...
then all of a sudden shoot off really fast where it's like you see it, then it's gone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
And
saw.
luckily his friend at the time was driving by in his cop car. He stopped and he's like,
He actually stopped because he was wondering who we were and what we were
Oh.
doing, but then he realized it was us.
yeah, we told him he's out
I
looking
was
for
like,
him.
hey, I was looking for you.
And we asked him about the lights, and just that time when he was parked there,
You saw one.
another one came outside the mountain. And it did the same thing, stood there and started dancing around.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably, I would say, what, like 6 of them, I think we've counted, or 7?
Yeah,
And
and
it was timed. I mean, it was weird because it would come up, it looked like a Japanese paper lantern. But it would come up and it would just hover. Probably about, just about the horizon line, looking that far out. And it would hover for about 10, 15 minutes. Now, a Japanese paper lantern, those things just go,
Yeah, up.
it's like a balloon,
Yeah.
It just goes right up. But this thing hovered in the exact same spot, kind of almost, swaying back and forth because it was bright orange, so you could see it moving. And then all of a sudden, it just, boom, gone. Like,
See, mine was the
Fast
opposite.
off.
Like, it shot out of the mountain, and then it just slowed down and hovered like that. It didn't bob or anything, and then just blinked out.
yeah, and it would take about a 20-minute process in between, and then you'd see another one come up. Do the same thing, but it would start hovering for less and less, and then make the line. Until eventually it would just come up and almost immediately just, it was weird. Like,
Yeah. Well, I know when we were doing the investigation, I wanted to go out there by myself, which, you never should do. Anyways, so I took one of my friends out there with me, and it was during the daytime, but I didn't want, officers around, I didn't want whatever. I just wanted to go out on my own. So I went to the Van Duzer, and they have like the parks on each side where you can stop and
rest up.
Yeah, rest stop, yeah. And so that's where we went, and I said, let's go find, because they have a bunch of logging trails up there, logging roads. And so we found one, we went through the brush and found one. And we walked, oh my God, probably 5-6 miles in. And we were just talking about animals, and cougars and stuff like that and whatever. And so we stopped because he wanted to light a cigarette, and we heard this, I don't know how to explain. Like if you open a shed door, metal door, and it's like that. We kept hearing that over and over, but it was like echoed. And so I turned on the recorder and I was recording it, and I couldn't explain. It was all around us. And so he's like, you sure there's no secret base out here? I said, I'm working with the Oregon State Police Department, and they, of course, because one of the people who had died on that corridor was from a different state, so that involves the FBI. And so all these people would let you know if there was a base out here, right? I was naive in that. And so, because you trust the authorities. And so anyways, we went out there and it was really creepy. We didn't see anything, but at one point, one of the bushes shook. We're out. So I said, I don't care if that's a bear, a cougar, or Freddy Krueger. I don't care. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So we took off, and I've never been back. So, but I did turn in the report because the reason why they called me is they thought that guy's killing was paranormal in nature, satanic or whatever. And so I proved it wasn't a search and gave them the report. So I'm out. My job was done, and I haven't heard anything after that. So, but I know the investigation's still going on. So it's definitely a creepy place,
It's someplace I've been checking out.
Yeah.
Most people run, Donnie runs too.
That's me. I run right straight at it,
I'd be running away, he's running towards.
Yeah, the people I talked to said that if I go out to that, the rest area there, and I actually walk back like I'm going towards Grand Round about maybe half a mile from that rest area, there's an old railroad grade there.
I know.
And then that's when they started talking about, they brought up to me about, oh, there's a secret military base out there, there's a secret town that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, me and Ryan spent, I don't know how many days Googling Earth in that place and couldn't find.
The only thing I will tell you, and I still have the rock with me to this day, we spent months. I mean, there's a lot of people out there canvassing those forests and stuff. Unless you're a Klingon and you got cloaking device on that base, it's not out there. But one thing we did find that was really odd was I was a little bit better in shape back then, but so I was a huge hiker, so I could hike up to 30 miles in a day. So those who are good hikers took the mountainy area, and then the others took the valleys. So we were walking up this side of this mountain and looking for people or anything. And we got to the top of this mountain, and I remember, because we were right on the cusp of getting on the top, I remember this distinctly because it was pretty steep. I mean, it was a 65-degree incline. And I'm not a young pup anymore, so I had to stop and catch my breath. And then there's like a break in the tree, like you have to go through these thick brush, and so you get through the trees, and several of the guys did, and they were like, hey, you guys come see this. So I'm like, okay. So I got and walked through there, and there was a complete square. Like the trees, it's almost like someone took a laser and cut the trees. Not just removed a tree, but like one whole side of the tree is just cut perfect. And there's no dirt, there's no grass, there's not one blade of weed. It's all rock, like a construction site with the big rocks, like that. But all the rocks were like turquoise color. And so we're like, what the hell? And the other guy's getting on his phone on the internet to see, like Google Earth, to see if that was on there, and it wasn't on there at all, And so they radioed to some of the agents and stuff to come up, and we stayed up there 20 minutes. And when you come on a site like that, you're not supposed to disturb the site, I'm slipping rocks in my pocket. I want to see, I gotta have answers, because I know once they show up, they're gonna remove us, and we would never hear anything, which is what happened. And so we ended up going inside the mountain and not hearing anything. But I had one of those rocks. Two of them, I had three. Two, I don't know where it went, but I still have one of those rocks, and I still want to get that analyzed, because what would burn rock so much that turns it turquoise blue? And it's not turquoise. These are just rocks, So when you hit the rock and you see in the middle of the rock, it's just rock and then a layer about that thick of turquoise color. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it was, but it was really odd, and we could never return back to the site, and we had to sign forms saying that we'd never speak of it. but I don't do well with that. So hence why I'm speaking of it. You know, sue me.
I still think it'd be awesome to go out and see if we can't find it.
Have fun. 65 degrees. Does this gut look like it would hike a 65-degree hill?
There's a road that goes upside the mountain, but it's so rutted and stuff that you'd have to have an all-terrain to get through there. So I mean, you can go the road, but you know, we're hikers, so we'll tackle that mountain. You know.
I'll be the guy down at the base with the radio, making sure, you know, the satellite phone, making sure you guys are okay.
Yeah, but somebody obviously was up there because when we were going up, we would notice pillars of rocks. People would, like perfect pillars. They would just create these pillars at parts of the mountain as you went up. So we were trying to figure out, is this like a monumental site that someone came to, like they want to remember? Because that's oftentimes why they do that. So I don't know what it was, but there's about 8 or 9 pillars as we went up the mountain. I just told them, you know, if we see branches in the trees that look like Blair Witch, we're out. You know.
All right, so we're back. We only got a few minutes left, so we'll just start wrapping stuff up. Mark, do you got anything else you'd like to share with us before we close this off?
Not that I can think of. I appreciate the things that you guys do. I've been kind of following what your work and watching your videos and stuff, and really, really informative. You know, I think a lot of those tutorials that you guys are doing are really important for groups who are trying to start up. So I really admire what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you ever felt led, we do have special guest investigators come on our show with us.
Yeah.
So for myself, and I'm sure these two won't mind, I'd like to give you a personal invitation. Hey, next time we go out investigating, if you want to join us.
That'd be awesome. I actually thought about that some time ago. You know, I really miss, it's been a long while, a couple of years since I've been on an investigation, you know, so I will tell you I'm not a technical person. I take a camera and a recorder, and that's pretty much all I know how to do. So
you and Daniel get along swimming. I'm more the techie. He'd be more happy with just a recorder and a camera, and that's it.
I got an MP3 player for Christmas, and it took me 45 minutes to figure out how to use it. So yeah, that's me. And so anyways, I would love to come, you know, and just follow around. And
Yeah,
Well,
we're
we
trying
might
to.
have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
We've got some
definitely
good
hold you.
places to come up too. So
yeah.
I'll get a hold of Mark and have him come with us next time.
yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to send that recording of me talking to Joseph in the house, and you guys listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.